In a rare example of cooperation between the two countries, Russia's security services have arrested 14 ringleaders of a ransomware hacking group following a request from the United States. Among those held are the person believed to be responsible for hacking the largest pipeline in the U.S. The shutdown of the Colonial Pipeline led to fuel shortages across America's East Coast last year. Alex Hamerstone joins us now live from Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. He's a cybersecurity expert at Trusted Sec, a security consulting firm. Good to have you with us again, Alex. What do you make of the fact that at a time of such high tension between Russia and the US, the two countries appear to have cooperated on this ransomware group?
I think a lot of people I've talked to in the industry are certainly surprised that this cooperation is happening. There certainly are a lot of political elements to it, which I'm not necessarily qualified to comment on those. But really with ransomware, one of the reasons these actors are able to operate with impunity is because they can operate in countries that don't cooperate. And so it's very difficult to bring them to justice. And so this is really a rare, at least public example of this happening.
How big a problem is ransomware these days? Of course, I mean, the attacks that make headlines, the attacks on critical infrastructure, we all know about. But is ransomware still a major problem?
It absolutely is. It's one of those things that's so common, it rarely makes the news anymore. And really what causes it to be on the news is when it attacks something that's critical infrastructure or something unique. And what's happened is that, when these attackers have started to go after, critical infrastructure, when it starts to lead to a shortage of fuel, then that's really when you get a lot more government attention and really, people calling for action. And we're certainly, seeing the kind of the heat being raised on these actors.
So how do you stop it? I suppose it's got to need more cooperation between countries if, as you say, this is happening across borders and it's difficult to police.
It is. The challenge is there's just so much money in it, right? And so for criminal gangs, it's really a lower overhead activity that just nets huge profits. And even when these cases cross borders and countries cooperate, it's still very difficult legally, and there's a lot of logistics to it and red tape that makes it difficult to prosecute these cases. So when countries don't cooperate, of course, it's much more difficult. And so some of these actors will use very basic techniques. Some use very advanced techniques. And with the complexity of organizations and the amount of money out there that's to be made doing this, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
When you talk about the complexity of organizations, are you saying that people's IT security is lax, or that their IT infrastructure is just so complex there's bound to be a back door in somewhere?
It can be both. It really can be very difficult to secure these very complex organizations, really, because it just takes one way in, right? So the more complexity you have, the more chances there are for someone to be able to find a vulnerability and be able to attack it.
But as long as ransomware remains as profitable an enterprise as it currently is, I suppose there's going to be no end to it.
It's unlikely. Maybe it'll slow down, maybe increased prosecution, maybe increased cooperation will help slow it down. But just given the amount of money that's in it, especially, given that other criminal enterprises are not as lucrative, I think it's very likely it'll just continue to happen.
Alex, it's always good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed for being with us again. Alex Hamerstone there in Cleveland, Ohio.